Welcome everyone to the Mastermind Book Club. We are here this evening ready to receive an important summary to a book that we have been listening to, and the book is called Good to Great. Good to Great is a book that assists in understanding why is it that certain CEOs or people who are in charge at organizations are able to excel beyond the average CEO, and the qualities that are needed to get to these levels, and the companies that have excelled to these levels. Why? Do these companies have a specific algorithm? Do they have some type of monetary gain over the other ones? Not necessarily. So the reality is that we each are handed a deck of cards, some the whole deck, some half a deck, and it's not the amount that matters, it's what you do with each and every single card in actuality. And that's where we'd like to give the opportunity to you who are here to tell us a little bit about this book, Good to Great. Good to Great was written by, who's the author? Jim Collins. Jim Collins. And Jim Collins did a great job in creating this book. He, as he was creating this book, he didn't know what he was getting himself into. And all of a sudden, he found out much more than he was expecting to. So I'd like to turn it over to you guys and get your view on this book. What did you learn? At least one thing, as usual, and we'll take it from there. Charles, Reggie, Martha. I don't know if Martha has a no. So Reg, Charles.
I guess I could start. One of the things I got from the book, I was talking to Reggie earlier about how they distinguished, I guess, the leaders from the actual people who were just, I guess, they were the doers. So the leaders were visionary type people. They actually had the ability to take the company somewhere, not just do the work. Um, it brought me back to a time when I was in college, and it was a guy named Peter Drucker. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he was the father of management thinking. And one thing that he was great for back in, I guess, the 50s and the 60s, when you 50s, 60s, and 70s, when you had like GM, Ford, they all had this like big cars, gas guzzling cars, and he had a theory of like, taking these cars and making them economical, making them cheaper, and GM and Ford, they shot him down saying that, oh, nobody would want these cars. And you can see where I'm going with this. He took these cars to Japan and over in the Asian markets, and they took his theory and they made like it's still going strong today. So he had theories that managers should above all else be leaders, which relates to what Jim Collins was saying. He placed high importance on decentralization, knowledge of work, managing, the objectives, your MOBs, and the process. So he called this process smart. It was smart to not keep going with the gas guzzlers, the big cars, the cars that use metal. So now if you even the car you have in the back, it has a lot of non-metal parts on it. One of Peter Drucker's famous quotes was, knowledge has to be improved, challenged, increased constantly, or it vanishes. And that's what Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, kind of reminded me of, especially when he gave the theory of the bus. How on the bus you have, like I said, your visionaries, and you had the actual people who they were part of the team. They could do the work, but they weren't the leaders. And with the leadership, no matter who like if one leader left the company, it was like the next one up. So that kind of reminded me of the football theory. You know, like
Yes.
you have people playing different positions. So one guy goes down, the next guy might not be as great as the guy before him, but he could get the job done. And those were some of the things that I got real quick from the book. Um, and I'm sure some other stuff that I'll think of as people talk. So I'm gonna pass the mic on to whoever's next.
Well, it's
Thanks for
very,
letting me
very
share.
insightful, Charles. Very insightful. And yes, I remember the story as you were relaying it. I think we read it in a different book as well, in reference to the story of how Japan developed their cars out of a USA standard when it was taken over there. So thank you for reminding me. Appreciate that.
But
Us.
we had those ideas and technologies first, but we were, America was making so much money with their industrialization of making those big cars that they didn't want to make a cheaper, better car,
Yes,
and he took, like I said, he took that idea over to the Asian market, and they're still beating us today.
correct.
That's created, Toyota,
Toyota,
Honda,
Honda, Nissan. Yeah,
Nissan. Yeah, those are
yeah.
made. So you can't beat them
They
now. You have to join them.
they have taken the market worldwide. Yeah, yeah. So you're right. Thank you,
But
Charles.
that's what the book reminded me of, and there was some other things that I'm trying to think about, like you can't put a round peg in a square hole. So like the managers, or going good to great, means you can actually map out the course for the company by putting the right peg in the right hole. So a
Yes,
circle peg goes in a circle hole, a square peg goes in a square hole. And it was a good book. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. It's a lot of the parts. I actually did it the second day after you gave it to us. So
fabulous,
it
fabulous.
was some things I didn't. It'll come back to me, like I was
Can you
talking to
believe
Reg earlier.
it was taken down and I had to find other resources? So that's why I posted it twice afterwards. But that happens as well. Yeah. So appreciate that. Let's see if Reggie or maybe Martha has fixed her microphone and wants to talk. No, nothing yet. Maybe Reggie's in the middle of something. So, but we'll
No, I was
see.
waiting for
Oh,
Martha.
okay. No, Martha, I don't know. She's having some problem with her microphone. I'd say, Martha, maybe restart your laptop or computer and see if we can get through because we don't hear you at all. Maybe change underneath where it says, if you have a similar type of setting as I do, Martha, where it says mute, if you open up the actual folder in there, it gives you different microphones. Maybe switch around the microphone. Maybe that's where it is. So in the meantime, let's get Reggie. Reggie, let's go.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. So good to great. Good to great and built to last.
Right.
So I thought of this book because, I mean, we're more individuals, in the way we kind of go about our business. Of course, we can have companies. Of course, we could be a part of a company in terms of working for a company. But I looked at this from an individual perspective, and I'm thinking about me as the vehicle, the person, right? Right. So now good to great starts with the decision to be great. And that's as the individual, right? Whether the company or individual, but I'm going to look at it from an individual perspective. It starts from the individual's decision to want to be great. And then from there, you can go on and decide. You've decided, so now you begin to go down the path to take the steps of how can I go about being great, right? And so now this book talked about putting the right people on the bus. And I'm thinking about the bus as you, the vehicle, the individual, your human body, yourself. And the things that you put on the bus start with your thoughts, start with your ideas, start with your actions, start with the things you eat, start with the books that you read, start with the people that you surround yourself with, right? So to me, that was like putting the right people on the bus. Putting the right people on the bus was putting the right things in place in your own life that basically would allow for you to come to a place where you have the ingredients for success, a successful run. And so now as you do that, you don't necessarily have to know the all the right steps, but by having the right elements with you, that's going to necessarily help you. because now you at least are not setting yourself up to fail, right? So that's a good way to kind of prepare yourself, right? And just the same way, you could have the wrong things on the bus or the wrong things within your sphere in your body around you that could set you up to fail, right? So now if you have the wrong, quote unquote, wrong people around you, you're eating the wrong food, you're reading the wrong books, you're listening to the wrong programming, you're watching the wrong TV shows, you're doing the wrong things. That could be a point of where you can start to go down a path of destroying yourself or setting yourself up to come up short, right? And it talked about that in the terms of the company, whereas it talked about the individual, the CEO, putting the right people on the bus, not necessarily knowing where the bus was going, but also mentioned the fact that if you put the wrong people on the bus, the wrong people will drive away the right people, which will necessarily attract more of the wrong people, which would necessarily put that bus on the wrong course, right? So yourself, think of yourself as the individual, being the person who's the CEO of yourself, you have to be very instrumental and strategic about how you go about your business, such that you set up yourself for winning, right? So that's how we have to look at it, because we're often talking about ourselves in the way that we talk through this book club, and where we are, and what we're attempting to do, and what kind of wealth we're attempting to create, what kind of successes we're attempting to have, what kind of life we're attempting to go down, or what kind of life we're attempting to create for ourselves and for others around us. So we should be thinking about ourselves in the way that this company is thought of, as the entity that we're the ones that are going to self-direct in this way. So that's the thing that's very important. And and then there's like, it's also like, just in terms of what all these ingredients that you have, or all these, the ingredients, if you will, that you have that will help you to do your thing, is like, it's not always necessarily the thing, because it's like, it's still you, the decision maker. Because it talked about in this book about the technology, right? And even the car, right? In terms of like, if you were talking about the Indy 500, or driving that type of car, and it said like, it wasn't always so much the car, it was more like, it could be the car in some sense, but it's like actually the crew, and it was actually the way that you drove the car, right? So you have to be very mindful in that it's the way you take all of those ingredients and how you use those ingredients, how you drive yourself, how you move yourself in the direction, the path of going from point A to B. So even if you have certain tools, you gotta realize it's still gonna come down to you, the individual, and what you do with those tools. And then when we talk about in this book, there was a mention about technology, and it was saying like, and they talked about this hedgehog concept, which I don't want to jump into too much of that, but using the technology is important, but it's not the overall end all be all to making it such that you go from good to great, because the technology could help, but you really needed to have that plan. You can have the just enough technology, but you would have to use the technology that fits within the realm of what you are trying to do, right? And so that was very much important in terms of understanding how you go from good to great, right? Understanding that. And then the other thing was about, which is a very critical thing, is doing the thing that you do better than anyone else, such that there's essentially no competition in what you're doing. And so you can really become good to great if you're doing the thing that's really the thing that you should be doing, that no one else can do as well as you can do. And I thought about that in terms of even just being yourself. Like, no one can do you better than anyone else. So if people started with just understanding of being themselves, they could be great, right? And then that will be the determining thing through which they can live their lives, because they're setting themselves up not to do something that anyone else is doing, not trying to imitate someone else, not trying to do the things that other people do, not trying to copy. Although I understand in a sense we do sort of copy and mimic whatever, but you only can be you. And if you really just worked on being you, which shouldn't be a job, shouldn't be a task to be you, but somehow, some way we come out of being ourselves. So by trying to go and mirror the world in every way and doing what the world tells us to do, and following all these other people's paradigms and all this other stuff that's put out there, that's presented to us on TV and social media or whatever. But if you were to do the things that you do best, which starts with being yourself, but doing the thing that you do better than anyone else, you could actually become great in that thing. And so everyone has a vehicle, everyone has a thing that they can do that could put themselves in a position of winning, that put themselves in a position of having a great fortune, that could put themselves in a position of growing, of amassing the type of life and the type of just beautiful whatever that they want to have in their life, just because they are positioned that way. But they just need to understand that, and they just need to then focus on those things that's going to allow them to get from where they are to where they're going. So there's a lot of very important stuff in here, and I just try to take it back to ourselves, just as individuals. Although this was very much painting the picture of the company, right, and how the company can go from good to great, just in terms of implementing those different things in place that will necessarily allow that company to go great, which had to do with the, you know, the fact of the individuals that were in the company, as it talked about with the manager being a level 5 manager and putting the right people in the right seats or whatever, such that those people would be able to help the company to thrive or whatever. And it didn't take for other criteria to be in place, but necessary for the right people to be in the right places. As Charles talked about, you know, the square pegs and the round holes, or round pegs and the square pegs and the square holes, and the round pegs and the round holes, right? And not the other way around. But ultimately, it's individuals. It's always individuals, whether individually the people that you assign in the positions, or where they are, if you're talking about a company, or, you know, whatever, right? Any of that is those necessary steps in terms of, or the necessary pieces that you have to put in place in order to have this thing work. And if you understand that, you can actually have any type of success that you want, because really, as I said, it comes down to you and you making the right choices. And the choices is a lot of what I just already presented, which is necessarily going to take you from where you are to where you're attempting to go. So those are some of just a few of the shares that I offer, just in terms of what I took from the book, because I thought it was a very powerful book, good to great, and then ultimately to take that greatness and keep it going, which is said to build to last. So the idea is not to just get to a point of being great, but to sustain that greatness, to keep that greatness going on to perpetuity. Because like with any company, the first idea of the company is to have a company go on in perpetuity, which is essentially more often than not to have the company last forever, if that's typically the plan of the company. But a lot of companies don't sustain that greatness, or that those levels of prowess, because of the things that they don't do, the people that they don't put in place, the measures that they don't take, the disciplinary actions that they don't do, and all the sort of wasteful things that they may do, and the wrong steps that they take along the way. But if you are able to understand and get to that place where you put the right people in place, and you do the right things, you can take your situation, yourself, your company, or whatever, and have it thrive and grow and persist from now until. So that's some of the stuff I'll share.
Thank you, Reggie.
David.
Very insightful. Yes, Charles.
Yeah, I just want to just throw something else in that I like. He showed the gauge, and the gauge was like the build up, then the breakthrough, and then they had these analogies, the technology accelerators, how going good to great, you were able to use the technology, like I was telling you about Peter Drucker and his theories.
Yes.
Also, with the technology, they were able to go from the old conveyor belt to doing robotics, which made cars faster. So that was one of the technology. And then the culture of discipline, like where you actually have, I guess, not getting sidetracked by something extra, but really focusing on, I guess, on the plan that's going to take you somewhere. The next was like Reg had mentioned, the hedgehog theory.
Yes.
How was it the fox? I'm trying to remember. The hedgehog, he had one thing in mind. The fox was hungry, but the hedgehog, he never got eaten because he focused on one thing. The fox focused on several ways to get to the hedgehog, but the hedgehog outsmarted him because he was fighting to survive. He was fighting to live. He knew if he failed, it was no recourse.
That's correct.
The next one was the confront the brutal truth. Like if something's not working in the book, Good to Great, confront it. Know that it's not working. Scrap it. Come back to the drawing board, rethink it, and redo it. Then the other concept was first who, then when. First who, then when. So I guess that was sort of um, like you develop you develop a thing, and then who would run with it, and then who develops it, and then when do you put it out to make you, I guess, go to the next level. And then like Reg talked about, and we talked about, I was initiating to the level 5 leadership, where the next man up can also take control. And that a lot of these CEOs who in the level 5 leadership, they didn't just run that company, they also went on to run other companies, which the book talked about, because they had that culture of winning. They had that culture of the discipline. They had the use of the technology. And then they talked about disciplined people disciplined thoughts, and disciplined actions. And, those are something we all can use on a personal thing, as Reggie was talking about. Disciplined people, being able just to focus on one thing in a corporate, like that oneness. And disciplined thoughts, they all had the same plan of action, the same thought practice, and they all applied action to these thoughts to make their company go from good to great.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate that. That's one of the things that I was just going to say is that we as a mastermind, although we are not a paid individual part of a company, we know that in our mastermind club, we have many people who have joined. We know that many people qualify to listening to books, reading books, but most people neglect to do that. And that is the number one source of information that we all will not um, starve from if we don't let it into our lives, then we are going to starve. But each and every one of you has been disciplined enough to be here on a regular basis. It's okay if you're out once a week. I've been out as well, so that's okay. However, but you've been disciplined enough to understand the importance of reading, of having disciplined people participate, of just that, as Charles said, of having a disciplined thought and then taking a disciplined action. And the disciplined action is one, listening to the books, two, implementing what you're listening, at least one thing, or see if there is a better way to be able to achieve whatever it is that you're going after. And that's part of the level 5 leadership, as to distinguish the good to great leaders. And I believe that each and every one of you is a leader. I believe that you are driven, which is one of the characteristics needed or behaviors needed by level 5 leaders. You are driven. You are building a success for you, and I'm certain that you are building successors, meaning each and every one of us in here will eventually, uh, as part of a mastermind, will assist each other with a hand, with a thought, with the emotion. So that way, everything goes into perfect motion. We share praises with each other. Sometimes we're spot on, and sometimes we need to be corrected and take a little bit of blame of not being able to have listened to the book completely or understood the book and so on. However, it's part of the process. It's part of the process. Another behavior and characteristics of level 5 leadership is that we are normal people. We're not superheroes. We are not super talented yet. However, we are in the process of assisting each other. And whatever comes about, the main source is from our internal substance. It comes from within, from our soul, from our heart, from our minds. That's basically the behaviors of leadership that each and every one of us can benefit uh, from this book. Now, one other, I just took some notes here so that I wouldn't forget. And can you believe it? My phone just sacked out. That was perfect timing. Jeez, hold on. I'll get it back right here. So the next thing that, because there were 5 different levels of leadership, and okay, here we are. So first 2, then what, as you were saying, first 2 and then what, meaning that it's easier to change direction. Your team will be self-motivating if you get ahead and communicate much clearer with people with exactly what you want, so that in the end you will save energy. If you are straightforward, well, listen, Charles, I need you to jump 100 times every day between 10 and 2 p.m. And you need to do it in this sequence. So you jump once, and then you jump twice, and then you jump once, and so on. So that's the discipline that we need. Now, if I have to keep reminding you to do this, then you're not going to help our level 5 leadership. Okay, so this is part of the ability of being able to get ahead beyond the other companies, but it also gives the organization the potential to become great if all I have to do is tell you once, and then from that moment onward, you are all set. All right, because there's no CEO that's going to do it all on their own unless they have some magical powers and they have magical money that they're going to have a magical way. Florence Scovel Shin. I'm certain you remember that. Anyways, the key principles: when in doubt, don't hire. When in doubt, do not hire. You keep looking for what you need until you find it. When you know you need to make a change in personnel, right? You need to act right away. Most of the CEOs let things build up. And you know that the mentality of workers is, why should I do any more work if they're going to pay me the same amount? Then you've got to get on the ball with that. Put your best people on the biggest opportunities, right? We don't have companies, corporations yet. However, who's to say that tomorrow we're not going to be able to confront our own disciplines and have our own company branch out and have people follow us to accept the message of being companions, of being disciplined, and taking disciplined action. So number 3, the third level of this book is that there are certain practices that we all have to have. One is to lead with questions, not with answers. Everyone wants to lead with an answer. God, I hate this job. Why not ask yourself, how can I make this job better? Right? I've been there, I know. I've said something similar in the past, although it's been many years since I worked for someone. Engage in dialogue and debate, not coercion. So again, it's the question. It's asking the right questions. Communicating. Finding the answers you need in order to resolve. Conduct, autopsies without blame. So you dissect whatever it is that you need to dissect in order to find solutions, not to blame people, not to say that this is the problem, but to find the solution, right? You use this dissection or this autopsy to be able to learn, to grow, and to be more focused on what it is that you need to accomplish. All right. Now, we have to build, if we want to be successful, we have to build red flag mechanisms according to level 3. What does that mean? Where are we right now needing the most help? Where are we lacking? Where are we unable to communicate in reference to what we want to get accomplished? And in reference to the hedgehog, which is level 4, the hedgehog concept, there are 3 questions to ask yourself. So in reference to the hedgehog, one is, what is it that you are passionate about? What is your passion? Are you discovering it? Are you nurturing it? Are you watering it? What can you best do in this world? What? And are you focusing on it? Did you do something about it today? Did you do something about it today? The third question is, what drives your economic engine? Is it work? Is it some part-time job? Is it some other money-producing activity? Whatever it is, you need to be able to take the hedgehog concept in that you have to focus on one thing. The one thing, from all the books that we read, it's about focus. It's not about having 10 different things. It's about focusing in on one specific task, and that's what the hedgehog does. He goes out. He knows he's potential food for predators. However, if that happens, he focuses on one thing. What's the one thing? Survival, right? And he has a mechanism for survival. And number five, the fifth thing that this book talks about is the culture of discipline, which we mentioned it at the beginning, which Charles mentioned. To support a culture of discipline, you need to build a culture of freedom and responsibility, but within a framework. Freedom and responsibility within a framework. In other words, I need Charles to jump at this sequence during this time. However, you're free to do as you need to. You just have to be responsible about doing it, and then everything else will work out, and we will all be much more successful. Getting the right people on board. Sometimes it's about letting go of the wrong people first and not going anywhere until you get the right people on board. So that's one of the issues that a lot of CEOs encompass is they can't get rid of employees. Right? That's just the reality for whatever issue. I know that's changing rapidly because in recent times, a lot of people are independent contractors, so they can hire and fire and so on. And that's just a catch that businesses have gotten themselves into to avoid paying all other unnecessary costs of insurance and so on. So you build a stronger culture and not a dictatorship by communicating with your employees and with your potential colleagues in reference to building a business. Now, we are people that at times don't exercise extreme focus in adhering to the hedgehog concept, meaning what is that one thing that you want to accomplish right now? Charles, we've spoken, Martha, we've somewhat spoken, and Gina and Reg too. The whatever it is that you have as your primary goal, the objective is what's the one thing that you're doing to get you there. And then the last thing in this group is create a stop doing list. Most people create things that they want to do, but we as individuals, I mean, I haven't really created a stop doing list. I just know that when I review what am I doing, what am I not doing, what should I stop doing, what else can I do, then I realize that I'm doing too much of one thing and not dedicating enough time to another. Have you noticed that, or is it just me? Have you experienced that, or is it just me? See, discipline on its own is pointless. Discipline on its own is pointless. Oops, sorry if my audio is going in and out, as Gina just said. So that's why I tried to get it much closer. I'm really sorry about that. Discipline on its own is pointless unless you're willing to do the 3 steps of discipline. One is obviously being disciplined. 2 is having disciplined people. And 3 is taking a disciplined action. And then the last thing was asking yourself that question. What are you willing to stop doing in order to achieve your goal? So that is what makes us good to great, in that we are not just focused on ourselves, but also in helping others. Yes. So Gina, would you like to comment anything in reference to this book?
Actually, David, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I have to confess, I haven't read the book.
Okay.
I just got back from the island, so thank you though.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you guys go ahead. I'm listening now.
All right. That sounds good. Martha, did you fix your mic, or are you still out? Yeah, Martha's mic is still not good. So we're gonna have to wait for the next one. So let me just finish this recording. Everyone in the Mastermind Book Club, a tongue twister. Thank you for being here. The book club is not about having thousands and thousands of people, although we would love that. It's about focusing on you, on your growth, on your opportunities, on your disciplined actions, your disciplined self in a disciplined method. Thank you very much for joining us. And until next week, this is the Mastermind signing off.